Kicking off the third season. Welcome in, folks, and good afternoon or good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome in to the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7, 365 comprehensive home for the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball world. After a brief hiatus, we officially begin season number 3 here on the network here, coming away with a full 2-hour slate of programming this evening as we begin the 2017 WNBA season WNBA Draft Day show. Good afternoon, folks. Joined for the meantime by our good pal, Anila Khan, joining us from the GTA or the Greater Toronto area. Cal McClure back with you folks here from sunny San Diego, California, inside the Calamax Sports Studios, Central Hub. All right, Anila, I know we got a few other guests in the 2-hour program, but it's great to be back on the network and also great to have you aboard. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. I can't wait for a really interesting talk.
So with that, folks, again, we do have a few other guests joining us later in our 2-hour feed again. Now, to reiterate our draft day schedule again, we will have our 2-hour draft stream show here for the next 2 hours until roughly 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock back east. We'll take an hour and a half break and come back and rejoin you folks at 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern with a full recap of today's draft coverage. Slater joins folks as well will be our good pal Crystal Thomas, Pat Friday, Owen Perkins, and potentially, folks, NBA TV's Angelique Gray potentially also as well. A little bit of a quick disclaimer, folks, about our brief break. It was more so done. We had to clean up a few things behind the scenes. We got all those worked out, thankfully, without anything going under the course as well, folks. As you know, 4 other announcing jobs here, so had to step away for a bit and get back on track there. But I'm glad to be back with you folks here, and of course, on a big day to begin the 2017 season with the WNBA draft coverage. You do have a few correspondents, folks, actually at the event from Samsung 378 in New York City. Find them on Twitter. You can also, folks, interact with us as well during the course of our 2-hour or full slate of coverage today. Find us at WNBA 365 at Calamac3. Anila's handle, by the way, folks, is at WHoopsBlogger. Crystal's is at Pup1010. Find Pat on Twitter at the Flyest Hoopa. That's Hoopa. Find Angelique on Twitter. Her handle is at A_Gray1. Or find Owen on Twitter. His handle is at WNBA StatsFacts this evening. And also, Anila will also take your questions and comments as well on Twitter this evening. With that, Anila, we'll start off with us two for the timing until everyone else is able to join us again. They are just draft day coverage on the ESPN Family Networks, folks. A reminder for those folks, or a program alert for you. As of right now, you can find the draft as of now on the ESPN Family Networks. And as mentioned, round 1 starts off on one channel. Rounds 2 and 3 moves to another ESPN channel sometime this afternoon. So we'll be keeping our eyes on this as they, as of right now, we're beginning to show some of the draft prospects that are going to be inside Samsung 378 in New York City this evening. Anila, I guess to start things off with somewhat of a look back at last season, of course, the historic 20th season for the WNBA as a whole last year. So much pageantry during the course of the season. The LA Sparks won their 3rd championship in their first in well over 13 or 14 years. And so much hype around the season. Anila, I guess, in like maybe the Cliff Notes version, but what was your overall final take on how the 2016 season played out? New format, brand new schedule format, 20th celebration going on across the league. But overall, your final thoughts, Cliff Notes version of what you thought went well for 2016.
Well, what I really thought went well for 2016 was the fact that the league continually emphasized the 20th anniversary. So they used all of the logos. They had special celebrations. Every franchise was doing something related to it. And what made the 20th season of the WNBA so historic and a great thing was that a lot of players were entering, but a lot of great players were also retiring. So it was kind of a mix of a season. And there was like some special, like Tamika Catchings was retiring from Indiana. So the Indiana Fever had this whole retirement tour, and she had like this whole legacy thing going on. And then there was so many great other players also retiring, and then the greatness of the rookies, and the rookies did really well. So Brianna Stewart, Mariah Jefferson, Imani Boyette, just to name a few, who were the get-go introduced into the WNBA. And I really thought that the league made an emphasis on TV and put a lot more games on than it is this season, where I think last season they had like about 15 or 14 games, and this season it is just 9. So it was great to see more TV, and I thought it was a really great season overall. I thought the finals was the great capping point, because it got 2 of the best teams. Remember, the playoff schedule changed in the sense that they took the top 2 teams instead of from East and West, and it was great because literally the last minute you were watching the finals. It was really great, and I am so glad that I got to watch that and watch the greatness of the WNBA and its special players.
We now, folks, welcome in a third member to our broadcast team for our 2-hour special, the one and only Pat Friday joining us. Find Pat on Twitter at the Flyest Hoopa. That's Hoopa. Pat, good evening, buddy. Good to see you. Welcome aboard.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I had some technical difficulties, but glad to join you guys. Excited for this evening.
No worries. We have technical problems every night on this program, Pat. Don't feel too bad. Again, Pat, more so, again, folks, we are getting closer to the actual start of the draft. Of course, they've kind of run down a few of the talking points for 2017. But I guess, Pat, to kind of go back and look back in the rearview mirror, how about your final thoughts or cliff notes from what you saw for the greatness of the WNBA's 20th season, as me and Anila had just talked about, schedule formats, playoff formats changing, just a lot of good things that we saw, celebrations league-wide or team-wide, players retiring. Overall, final thoughts for the 2016 campaign for the WNBA.
I was very, very pleased by the end of the season. I can't say that I began the season that way, but the quality of basketball continued to improve as the season went on, as teams got more and more comfortable. The Olympic break always provides a little bit of difficulty for teams during the season as far as continuity goes. But, in terms of teams coming back and being focused, being, a Mercury fan as long as I have, per se, their performance after the break was much improved. So, looking at them as, I guess you could say, the worst team in the league for the first half, looking at the way the second half played out, it was just great basketball all around. Tamika Catchings, to see her go out fighting the way that she did, obviously I'm sure she would have expected or wanted it to end a little bit differently, but obviously the goal was to compete for a championship. We got the two best teams in the regular season at the end, playing to the very last second for a championship, and I don't think you can complain about that at all.
Yeah, not at all. I think that, as we already alluded to, guys, the format for the playoffs was really one of the biggest, most positive talking points for last season, again, of how, you can throw out the East versus West and kind of mix it up and put a wrench in there and either be Eastern Conference, or West versus West. So great job there as well. Again, once more, folks, waiting for the start of the official draft. Again, ESPN somewhat going through and showing some of the candidates again, or the prospects again. To get to business, folks, for the first round, at least, again, there's a lot going on here in regards to this. Again, a lot of moving puzzle pieces, a lot of moving gears, and, of course, the infamous draft day trade rumors. So as of right now, at this very moment on the program, your round 1 draft order will go San Antonio, Chicago via Washington, Dallas back-to-back, the number 4 pick being by way of a couple of trades made by those 2 clubs. The Stars, Washington via Seattle, Atlanta, Connecticut via Indiana, Chicago, Dallas via New York, LA via Dallas, and Minnesota will have that number 12 selection for the best record in the league. And with that, guys, once more, again, still waiting here, as we mentioned, guys, on some more folks joining us this evening. Crystal Thomas, by the way, guys, did write in and say she's at the doctor's office right now. She will be joining us, though, folks, sometime during our 2-hour program, and also on the back half of our programming at 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 Eastern. With that, guys, as we do somewhat get down to business now with the team that will be on the clock to begin the draft, again, the San Antonio Stars, coming off of a rugged 2016 campaign, finishing 20 games below 500 at 7 and 27. They finally got the number 1 pick, or the top 3 pick that they needed most for the season. Now, again, Anila, we've talked about this, or we and I talked about this off air beforehand, was, again, the machinations of all these rumors going around and swirling about, they're going to deal this number one pick away. But I think, though, if we were to look at it this way, the Stars are coming off of two very rough seasons again, and the hiring of Vicki Johnson made in January was the first step of the Ruth Riley era as the team general manager for the season. Anila, I guess, what's your overall take or stance on San Antonio's offseason and what their biggest needs will be?
Well, I think one of their biggest needs is just an upgrade in talent, because right now they only have Mariah Jefferson, Kayla McBride as, like, I would say, like, their star players, and then they have like a slew of like quality players, but I would call them more of like bench type players. And right now they need an upgrade, so which is why one of their biggest needs is going to be like a talent upgrade, like I just said. And I think Kelsey Plum is your best choice, even when people say it's going to be like an overcrowded San Antonio backcourt. I just think that right now she's the best pick. And with the number one pick, you have to take the best player available. And right now, as of this second, Kelsey Plum is the best college player available in this draft. So to not take her number one or to trade her would be, I think, a mistake. And I think ultimately San Antonio will still be in the lottery next year, in my opinion, because they still need a whole lot to be competitive. So, which is why I feel like San Antonio, Kelsey Plum.
So again, Pat, as we've discussed, again, the Stars are coming off again of a 20 games below 500 performance again, in a season I think that they would like to forget very, very quickly. And I think that as well. Moves me in the offseason. Ruth Riley comes in as GM. Dan Hughes, of course, steps away and retires. Vicki Johnson, who's been in that assistant coach role for many, many years, now goes back to San Antonio as their new head honcho. Pat, what do you think is perhaps the biggest needs for San Antonio in this draft? Of course, having that number one pick, they're in a very, very good time.
Biggest hole for me for the Stars is going to be at that 3 spot. I think Anila kind of alluded to some of the issues that I've been complaining of. Well, not complaining, but speaking about on Twitter in regards to San Antonio taking Plum. It kind of, I personally think it kind of sets a bad precedent when you consider the history that they have. Danielle Robinson was an all-star caliber player for them every year until she got injured, and then you bring in Mariah Jefferson. She has a great year, and you move on. That's understandable. But you look at the situation, and the very next year, you're looking at taking another point guard who's really smaller, probably if not smaller, a little bit slower and less fleet of foot than Mariah Jefferson. And you're talking about them being in a situation where they're competing with each other, and moving Kayla McBride from her best position to a position where she's having to fight with bigger, a little bit stronger than she is. And I think with the transitions that are coming with the international game becoming more prevalent, and we're talking about big skilled guards, I think the 3 spot is a hole that the Stars really need to look towards filling. And this is a draft that has the potential to be able to fill those holes for them, because you look at players with some length, the ability to create some shots. They need some size and a player that's actually going to be able to create her own offense, because last season was really a lot of one-on-one pick and rolls. And after K-Mac went down, to be completely candid, the offense was kind of hard to watch.
With that, folks, coming official at this moment, it is official. The San Antonio Stars with their first pick do select La Jolla Country Day Tory and Washington Husky Kelsey Plum with the number 1 overall pick. So for the second time within the last 10 to 11 years, a San Diego high school player has gone on to college and has gone on to the WNBA. With that, folks, we do welcome in one of the evening, courtesy of NBA TV, ESPN, Fox Sports Southeast. The one and only Angelique Gray joins us. Angelique, thanks for joining us and taking the time out of the day. How's it going? And welcome aboard.
Well, thank you guys. Sorry I'm late. It's been like madness trying to keep up with everything today. Obviously, it's draft day. It's very exciting. But it's been interesting. It's fun to watch. Obviously, I came in during some lovely dialogue about, why San Antonio Stars have the power as far as a guard spot so far. And then picking Kelsey Plum, I mean, the rich get richer, right? So at this point, it's fun to see. And I'm excited to see what that group is going to do. I also want to add to that, we're not sure, how everything's going to go with, Kayla McBride coming back from that injury, but they are very solid. She's a solid player. I spoke with her even towards the end of the year last year, and she was very optimistic about her return, already doing a lot of ball handling and drills on her own. So it'll be interesting adding Kelsey, and then obviously kudos to Ruth Riley, who is a close friend that has done a remarkable job with that franchise so far.
By the way, folks, you can find Angel on Twitter. Her handle's at @A_Gray1. Of course, roaming the sidelines for ESPN, NBA TV this past finals, and also making appearances on Fox Sports Southeast. With that, guys, second pick now, I should say. On the clock now, the Chicago Sky guys, who, of course, have been somewhat mangled this offseason. Of course, dealing Elena Deladon to Washington over the offseason, firing their head coach as well. But they did, though, guys, get to the league conference or the league finals, or conference finals, if you want to call it that, in this stage of the season. And that was also while Deladon was battling a hand problem during the course of the season. I guess in that regard, Anila, what probably, because normally I don't think we'd see coaches or players dealt away from the league or the conference finals in that short span of time. But I think, what did you see go wrong for Chicago towards the end of the season, perhaps, and even in the postseason?
Well, right now, Chicago apparently has interest coffee for the second pick. Think that Chicago, like Nia Coffee, it's too early to select coffee. Making it kind of her own move, I guess, in selecting potentially Nia Coffee, which is what I'm hearing. So I think Chicago right now, there are no weird kinds. They do have Courtney Vandersloot. They still have Imani Boyette. They still have Stephanie Dolson, and they still have Cappy Pondexter, even though she hasn't had a great season in the previous year. So I think it's interesting what's going on right now with the Sky, and I think honestly, if I was them, I would leave great from South Carolina. I think that Coffee will go to Chicago.
So, Pat, with that, again, normally we don't see roster influx or coaches out the door the next day after losing somewhere in the playoffs. But again, they did make the move to deal Deladon to Washington, and the biggest needs listed on the ESPN on ESPN so far, Pat, have been a three-point shooter and a versatile wing. What do you say about that, perhaps?
Oh, well, Chicago is a bit of an enigma for me because on the one hand, you have a team who showed they could play without Elena Deladon in the postseason last season. I don't think there's any reason for them to be anything but confident with what they showed, knowing that she wasn't going to be with them for the playoff stretch run. But with that being said, they have had some pieces moved around. I'm actually excited to see how the Imani Boyette, Stephanie Dolson pairing works out, because I think they both have the skills for it to work. Imani does have the ability to shoot the ball a little bit from the perimeter, and Stephanie has some ball handling skills and some passing skills that we haven't really seen since she left UConn, and I think that could really be successful for them. But I think Anila kind of touched on what I'm excited to see happen. I think Chicago is in a position where what they need to do is take the player that has the highest upside for them right now. And when you look at the makeup of their lineup, they kind of have a lot of overlap at important positions, because when you consider the point guard position and the center position, they probably have two starters at both of those. Because Jamira Faulkner really played extremely well last year, and knowing her personally, I know how hard she works and what she puts in, what she invests in the game. So it's really, it's been enjoyable to see her have the success that she's had. So I think the best thing that can happen for them is being able to turn exactly what you mentioned. I think Coffee is a player that has a lot of abilities that Chicago could take advantage of. Watching film on her within the last 48 hours, I tweeted about it a couple times. I could not stop watching. The kid has a lot of tools. She has a lot of skills. She could score at all three levels. Doesn't look like she's going to Chicago based on the pick that's just come in. But I will say, whoever gets her, she's got all the tools to be a successful player. The transition to the wing isn't going to be something that's going to be as much of a struggle for her, because she played it in high school. And I think the kid loves the game, man. And I think that's most important. That's really what you got to find with these kids.
Angel, I think people forget that, and Pat brought this up, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. It's just 3 seasons ago, we saw the Sky get to the finals against Phoenix without EDD because of her back problem. She tried to play through it, of course, and the back just wouldn't give her time of day. But in regards to seeing Chicago, I believe you were there in Chicago when LA had played Chicago at Allstate Arena. I think what is probably their biggest need in this draft? What do you think and why?
Well, it's very funny because when you're talking about Chicago, obviously Elena Coates is there now, so they feel like they need a big. And why not go with one of the most prolific, bigs in the league? And even with that injury, while she was out, really couldn't compete with her team in the NCAA tournament. She's still obviously, one of those players that is still going to get the job done. And the league understands that. She has a strong, solid base, great finisher, can finish on either side of the rim. I just feel like her footwork is perfect. She's hard on herself, and she's coached by one of the, best coaches in the country. With all of that being said, I think it is going to be very interesting. And I want to touch on too, what they already have. The piece is Tamara Young. When you're looking at also Cappy Pondexter, these are veterans in the game that know how to score. I was very, very impressed with how Jamira Faulkner performed, taking them into that playoff push and just her ability to score and lead. My only question with them was how long can they sustain that without the depth that they had last year, going forward. So it was like, okay, you're playing very well. You're shooting at very high percentages, from the field, but we saw the gas, the gas pedal come up just a little bit when they started, in that last game for them. So I think that it's going to be interesting. I think they have more of a balanced attack here. You already have Cheyenne Parker, who has improved drastically, a player that, is willing to learn. And then also, the 50 Cent, fan, Imani Boyette, who just finds a way to be that anchor in the paint. So when you add another component to that alone, I think that a lot of people say they're rebuilding, but they have a lot of young talent with some great leaders to show them the way in this league.
So with that, folks, again, Elena Coates out of South Carolina, one of the many Gamecocks on hand for the event this evening at the Samsung 378 in New York. With that, folks, I know we probably have had some small technical problems during the course of this. Again, bear with us. We'll get those worked out during the course of our programming this evening. And again, once more, want to just thank Angel for joining us today, this afternoon. One quick comment, guys, I want to bring up too from Michael Driver, who's watching us. He said, thanks for streaming this. There are some who do have interest. So Mike, thanks for dropping by and joining us. And yeah, we'll be here for at least the next 2 hours, and then we'll have a full wrap up coming up at 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 Eastern, back here on Wnba 365. With that, guys, moving now to the team with back-to-back picks. That is the Dallas Wings, coming off of their inaugural campaign in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from guys. I think they made some strides, but still, though, sitting in on the playoff race last year. And a lot of people have, I think we're a little bit maybe hesitant about the Skylar Diggins, Odyssey Sims up when Sims was dealt to Los Angeles earlier in the offseason. Anila, we'll start with you once more. What do you think about Dallas again? And then once more, back-to-back picks. We'll be talking about them for the next couple minutes here. But what do you got?
Quickly, first, I don't think Coates is staying in Chicago. I think it's trade bait for Dallas for them to have a trade. And I also think that the Dallas Wings underachieved last season. And as a result of that, Odyssey Sims got traded to LA. So for Dallas right now, I think what they were saying that they wanted in the news, a stretch five. But I don't really think there's any top picks right now that are stretch fives. And so I think it's interesting what Dallas is going to do. I think they're going to take Keala Davis from South Carolina, and I think they're going to maybe trade Elena Coates, and then Chicago will pick somebody from the Dallas's pick. That's what I think right now. But I think Dallas has a lot to prove. I think they need to make the playoffs because they're in an area where the popularity of it is pretty big, and I think if they don't make the playoffs, their heads are going to roll because they have a lot of talent and they should be in the playoffs, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on Dallas.
All right, so the third pick just came across the wire, guys. It is Hardo. I believe I got that name wrong, probably. Forward out of Kentucky, going third to Dallas. And again, folks, as a reminder, Dallas has 3 and 4. The number 4 pick now coming up is by virtue of that wacky Connecticut-Los Angeles trade made on that end. And the 4th pick was actually dealt from LA to Dallas in the Odyssey Sims deal made earlier in the offseason. So, Pat, once more, here we are again with Dallas, as we saw with Connecticut having back to. So, Pat, do you perhaps agree with Anil in regards that one of these picks is more than likely trade bait for something either via early in the season training camp or maybe towards the deadline? But what do you think about this upcoming selection, I should say, for the Wings?
Well, I'm gonna go completely out on a wing here. Completely out.
Quite literally.
There's probably gonna be some trades tonight. Just looking at the picks that have taken place as we've been talking here, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Let me preface this by saying, kids, get your butts in the gym. Evelyn Akator just picked up a basketball less than 10 years ago, went to junior college route, played 2 years in the SEC, and she just went number 3 overall in the WNBA draft. So get in the gym and get some work done. But with that being said, the picks in this draft, as I continue to research and read, I came to realize that the coaches aren't really high on this draft. And so there's going to be a lot of movement strictly in the realm of teams looking for specific fits and niche fits. And when you look at where the league was last year and the quality of basketball that we had in the league last year, save teams like a Washington who's adding a Deladon or an Indiana who's replacing a legend, a lot of teams really are bringing back the core of what they had last year. And so they have the ability to build onto the continuity of what they did last year, whether that was good or bad. And they have the ability to say, hey, okay, well, these are the holes that we had last year. Let's plug in here. And so what I think you're seeing a lot this year with teams is that you're going to see a lot of holes being filled. And so right now it looks as if there's going to be some movement. I probably expect Coates to be coming to Dallas just based off the pick that was made with Akator, because I kind of thought that she was a player that kind of would fit into Chicago's plans towards the latter parts of the draft. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to do. As far as the Wings need to go, to me they were the most disappointing team in the league last year. Seattle stole that playoff spot that they probably should have had, and so it's put up or shut up for them this season. Skylar and Odyssey really didn't mesh well. They moved on from that. Skylar has the reins now, and she should be healthy and ready to go from the beginning of the season. So, I mean, at this point, there's literally no excuse. They've got to make something happen this season.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, the number 4 pick now comes through the wires here and is Alicia Gray out of South Carolina going 4th to Dallas. So A Gray. So here we go. And from one A Gray to another A Gray. So Dallas finishes up their 2 picks. So a forward and a guard position, their first 2 picks of the draft. Angel, what do you think these 2 picks do for Dallas, perhaps, again, as we talk about, again, they broke up the Diggins and Sims backcourt. So what do these 2 picks in your mind do for the Wings going forward?
I think you should also hit on the fact that you're looking at what they also lost in the prolific scoring, and that's for Corona Williams, also that left from Dallas Wings is now with the LA Sparks. So you're looking for that scoring, you're looking for youth, you're looking for, not a player with not as many injuries. And I also want to point out, just with the versatile 3-4 player that they have for the 3 pick, they lost Lynette Pearson, who also signed with the Minnesota Lynx. So that's a player that brought them consistency on the boards, a defender, a player that can really get the job done on the boards, and just the energy of that group. So it's going to be interesting with that pick, how it sets them up. But I think it's what they need at this point. They call it rebuilding for a reason. You're going to have to get different players, and I think that Alicia Gray brings a lot of swag. The way she finished in that tournament, I think, was the best that she's ever had to play. And I think that things happen for a reason, with Elena Coates going down and just a lot of the guards having to step up. Alicia Gray was one of them, and also Kayla Davis that stepped up and showed that they can be more than just that team that was going inside. I think Alicia Gray, her confidence has gone through the roof, and we've been able to see how well she can finish. She's a facilitator, and she could create her own shot. So it's going to be a good addition to the Dallas Wings.
Back on the clock, folks, is the San Antonio Stars at number 5. They did take Kelsey Plum out of Washington, number 1 overall, but according to some gut rumblings from our good buddy Steven Anderson. He's got a feeling about perhaps Plum being dealt for potentially one of those 2 picks from Dallas. So again, folks, we'll see if anything does today with the draft, with the picks being traded or what have you. Of course, we'll break in and go from there. So I guess now Anila, so now we're going to be seeing the Stars pick for the 2nd time in this round again. The 5th pick here is by virtue of the Danielle Robinson trade that sent her to Phoenix, also earlier in the offseason as well. So been seeing a few things about either another guard, maybe another center perhaps in regards to needs or for position. So Anila, now at the 5 spots, now you go from 1 to 5. Where does perhaps does this 5th pick in your mind give the Stars more flexibility or more options perhaps in your mind, or what do you think they do with this number 5 selection?
I think for the number 5th pick, they're going to try to fill a position of need. And I think right now it's like mostly the center / power forward position. And I think they're going to select Brianna Jones from, if not her, then I've heard, this is what some people have told me, but I could be wrong on this, that they would select Sydney Weiss from Oregon State. So I think it's interesting. Whoever gets selected at 5, I think ultimately sets up all the other teams coming forward. So Brianna Jones is still on the table. Tori Walker-Kimbrough is still on the table. Kayla Davis is still on the table. So it should be interesting what San Antonio does. And I actually think they'll keep this 5th pick, and I think something else will happen with the other trades in some other aspect.
I'm glad they're here to break it down. As far as trades, I'm just
gonna be some. We guarantee there's going to be some fireworks tonight during the course of the draft, as ESPN did go to a brief media timeout as the Stars are on the clock for the number 5 pick of round 1. Again, this pick, folks, again, is, as we mentioned, by virtue of the Stars and Mercury trade that, of course, that did send Danielle Robinson to the Mercury earlier in the offseason. The teams, of course, swapping picks. So again, Angel, we talked about already once we have Dallas having flexibility with 2 picks already. Angel, I don't know if do you think that it can't be overemphasized about how much flexibility and options that this gives teams that are what do you think about what teams could be doing in regards to having 2 picks in one round?
Well, you know what? I think it does give them that leverage of, let's get one of the best players and see if we can, trade some people around. So I think when you have that, you just get and it all depends on the talent that you're bringing in too. You're not really high on getting 2 picks if you're not willing to, make that room on your roster. And I know that there has been a lot of movement in this past season. So I think it is very interesting how we see Chicago, we see also the Dallas Wings and the San Antonio Stars that are just trying to move things around. And it gives them the opportunity to just be better, obviously, And I think with those picks, it's endless as far as the opportunities that you can go with. And let's be mindful of the contracts when you're bringing in younger players. That gives you more of a leeway if you want to bring in a higher veteran for the pay grade to add that person.
5th pick is in for San Antonio. It is Nia Coffey, the forward out of Northwestern, going to San Antonio as the 5th selection. Again, once more as a reminder, this pick coming by virtue of the Mercury acquiring Danielle Robinson from San Antonio. All right, Pat, so you've got Plum and Coffey to San Antonio 1 and 5. So you got you have the NCAA's all-time leading scorer as your number 1 pick, and then you have a pretty solid forward out of Northwestern as your 5 pick. Pat, overall thoughts on San Antonio's first round of selections? What do you think?
Well, first of all, let me say this: Nia Coffey is their first overall selection. I've talked about how Plum didn't fit with this team, and their biggest hole was at the 3 spot. I talked about a particular player being a perfect fit for this team when she came out early in Kayla Davis and her ability to create off the dribble, really be able to go get her own shot. When I take my notes, she's one of those few players that I write bucket getter beside. So she's somebody that you can count on for a basket. And Nia Coffey is somebody I hadn't thought about in San Antonio, but she fits that same bill. Watching Nia Coffey on film, like I mentioned earlier, I couldn't stop watching her. And the reason that I couldn't stop watching her is because, first of all, the kid has a motor that is uncomparable. She came in, she started every game that she's played in except one during the 4 years that she's had at Northwestern. So you've got a kid that's going to come in ready to play. She's going to come in ready to play big minutes. She's going to be ready to work. She's going to show up every day. She's going to bring her lunch pail to work, and she's going to be out there and ready to produce for you. She's a kid that brings a lot of dynamics because she can shoot the three. People talked about her adding the 3-point shot, but she came in shooting threes. She just shot them at a higher clip as she transitioned in seniority with the program. But I think this is going to be a really solid pick for them. I think this is maybe a player that they probably had higher up on their board than 5. I personally didn't see her falling to 5. So for them to be able to get her here and already have their point guard of the future and still have Plum in tow to be able to say, hey, what do you guys want to offer me for her? I think this is a beautiful draft for San Antonio. I was worried for Ruth going into today, but just 5 picks in, I'm thinking she has to be literally over the moon right now.
Ruth Riley is actually joining Ryan Rucco via Cisco telepresence from AT&T Center in San Antonio, where they still have the hockey rink in for the AHL San Antonio Rampage, one of the other leagues I do cover here, folks, on the side of the WNBA. So Ruth talking, or at least talking about the first 2 picks that they had made. With that, guys, on the clock now is the Washington Mystics, probably the most intriguing team this offseason thus far, of course, luring Christy Tolliver away from the champion LA Sparks with that contract, and of course the big splash of the trade for Elena Deladon from the Chicago. Anila, the old anecdote about championships aren't won on paper can definitely be said with 2 frontline superstars. And now with a pick here by virtue of that trade in regards to the Storm sending a compensation pick somewhat in that deal, that package deal. Anila, with Tolliver and Deladon in tow, what do you think is the best option for the Mystics at 6 right now in the draft?
Well, the Mystics, they just need bench depth because they've got everything else that you could want in a championship team. But a championship, sure that their benches, for the most part, are, excuse me.
Gotta love it.
Okay, I'll call you back. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. That's real life. Anyways, so I think Brianna Jones from Maryland will go here, but because or Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, I'm not sure what's going on right now with the draft because all these picks are going crazy, and I have no idea if they're actually going to stay. But those are, I think, what's going to really happen. I don't know anymore.
So, Angel, I'm sure in my time with Fox Sports Southeast, or at least going through with NBA TV and, going through Washington or seeing them play, championships can't be won on paper. I mean, obviously it looks good right now with Tolliver and Deladon. And obviously, and I think it was brought up, though, too, over the offseason by our good pal Albert Lee of Bullets Forever, was the Mystics probably finally got that franchise superstar, that franchise player on their side with Deladon in tow. But again, Angel, in your mind, what do you think? As actually we do have Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, a guard out of Maryland, go trade, or that in place with the draft pick, I should say, not the trade, the draft pick in place. So I guess, Angel, as we do go on track, what does Walker-Kimbrough bring for the Mystics in your mind?
I think versatility on that wing spot. And then also she's from Maryland. She's going to bring some of her friends and family over there to see some of the games. I think she's just been such a dynamic player. She has that savvy ability to be able to stretch the floor, but then also just break you down from any position on the floor and get to the rim as well. And I think that's very much needed in the league. I think the learning curve is going to be interesting. She might need to put a little bit of weight on just with the physicality of this league, but I think it's a great addition. Of course, we're speaking in present time because you never know. I'm saying all this now and then somebody could be shipped off. So I do believe what she's bringing right now is something that, it's another scorer, a confident player with great size. And also with the Mystics, we keep saying, a franchise player coming, but we're looking at another superstar, an all-star with Emma Messiman that was just very, very good last year and, really showed us why she's so solid. She's not that player where you gravitate toward her. Her energy is, nothing that's, exterior. But what she brings to the floor just in her position, being able to shoot the three as well as the baseline jumper and just being efficient from the floor, I think that along with Ivory Latta, she is one of the best point guards regardless of age. She will break you down. And I think that it's going to take like you said, I think just the depth is what they need. And you also want to be very aware of, even with Elena Delle Donne, and I'm hoping for a very solid year from her. Obviously, she wants to be closer to home, but even with her battling with MS, that's something that, you know, you have to keep in the back of your mind. So who steps up? And I think they have the ability and some people in the roster to do that.
By the way, I'll just say it, folks, it's great seeing Holly Rowe, of course, at this event this year. Of course, was treated like royalty this entire season, of course, with many great honors for her and with her this season. So just great seeing Holly there. Again, Washington, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough out of Maryland to the Mystics. So again, Pat, what do you think about this selection by Washington as Atlanta now goes on the clock?
I think it's a very, very, very solid pick for Tebow. He's long been one of the best minds in the WNBA for me. So a lot of times, even when I don't understand what he's doing, I kind of go with it. But this is one of the picks that makes total sense to me. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough is a kid who has continued to progress. Last year's draft taught me a lot. One thing that I've learned about drafting players and talking about taking them from their college farm system into a professional setting is what you really have to be able to separate is these kids that have a passion for the game, those kids that you aren't going to have to chase to get into the gym, those kids that just have a genuine love and they want to get better. And those are the kids that you see improve on their own over the course of 4 years. Because when you consider all the responsibilities that a coach has, individual workouts aren't something that are I guess a focus in college. So when you talk about getting better and improving and getting your game better during the off season, you have to really get in the gym and do that. And Shatori Walker-Kimbrough is somebody who came in, and I'm going to be completely candid about it. She came in with no jumper whatsoever. And she led the country in 3-point percentage during her junior season. Not even her senior season, her junior season. So within 3 seasons, she came from no jump shot to leading the nation in 3-point shooting. So the kid is going to work. And with the team that they have, she's literally going to go out there, and every minute that she has, she's going to leave everything that she has on the floor, and you're going to be happy with what she gives you. And I think she's a high IQ basketball player. She's not going to make a lot of mistakes for them. And with Tebow trying to take that team from a mediocre, kind of middle of the pack team to a championship contender, I think that's exactly what he wants from a rookie.
Pick is in for the Atlanta Dream, who, guys, of course, as we know, will be missing Angel McCoughtry for the season. She'll be taking the season off to give herself a breather. They have selected Brittany Sykes, a guard out of Syracuse, with their first selection of the draft at number 7. This, of course, folks, was the pick, or this was actually ATL's overall selection. This was made, again, was by virtue of the package deal with the Seattle Storm in that trade between Chicago, Seattle, and Washington. So Anila Brittany Sykes out of Syracuse, who took her club and her team, for that matter, to the national title game just a couple years ago, part of a great run at Syracuse. Anila with Angel sitting out the season, of course, not our Angel guy. As a disclaimer on there, but with that, Anila, with her going to Atlanta, what does this do in regards to McCoughtry's absence for the season?
Nothing. Angel is still Angel. She's still the star player, the franchise of her team. This is a very curious pick for me. I think for number 7 for Brittany Sykes, I think you could have gotten her, I think, in the second round. I don't think she was, to be honest, a first round pick. I think there's a lot of great players still not being selected, which is kind of interesting. It kind of shows that the general managers have maybe a different perspective than what we've seen throughout the season. I do think Brittany Sykes is a solid player. I do think she'll be able to contribute. But I do think it's interesting how the Atlanta Dream did this. And I'm also concerned if this is a potential trade, because it's just, I don't know, something seems off about it. It doesn't seem like the Dreams type player, and not necessarily like in the way that they need her. So it's just like, it's interesting. I'm just interested right now. That's all I have to say.
So I agree. I think all the time with Bob and LaChina is probably going to help out with this one, I'm pretty sure. So again, an season, again, a worthy reason, again, giving herself a chance to, catch her breath, relax for a bit over the summer and enjoy, some downtime. So what does this do? I mean, potential maybe trade bait perhaps or something, but what do you think probably will this help for ATL this season?
Well, you know what? I will agree with Anila. I do think that they wanted another player, and I'm thinking even Alicia Gray, a player that could have stepped in and had the confidence to step up and really score and facilitate in that role. Or even at this point, Sydney Weiss, there's a lot of people that, like you said, Anila, that can step up, have the length, and have the ability to score. I will say this. Michael Cooper is a defensive coach. He likes the scorers, but he likes the players that are going to buy in on the defensive end. And that's something where I know Q teaches that on the Syracuse team. He's always going after it. He's always full court press, and then finishing in transition. That's what Michael Cooper and that Atlanta Dream franchise loves to do. And that's what they feel is going to be able to win them a championship. But I do want to point out that when Angel McCoughtry was out for the Olympic part of the season last year, that's when everybody really built on that they could win together. And they said it, even in practice, they just believed in one another. And I think they have a group right now that is very interesting. Tiffany Hayes, you also have Lasia Clarendon, who learned a lot even under, Tamika Catchings. And even, Elizabeth Williams, a solid player that was most improved 6th player for this year. So I think it's going to be interesting how we see things pan out. But I do agree that this is, besides the defensive part that she brings to the game, I think that it's bait for something.
So with that, guys, the Connecticut Sun are now on the clock, and they have missed the postseason 4 straight years, really doomed by injuries. And of course, Kurt Miller really pretty much guys came flat out and said this is a learning year. There's a learning curve for this team to go through, so there's going to be bumps in the road this season. This pick actually for the Sun team deal made back on February, Phoenix and Connecticut, and the pick is coming in at this point. So we'll just kind of be in a holding pattern as Lisa Borders makes the announcement of the select, and it is going to be Brianna Jones out of Maryland going to the Sun. So, and what does this draft pick do for CT in your mind?
I think it's a very good pick for them. Brianna Jones is a talented player who has the potential to continue to improve. I think I don't necessarily agree with this pick for Connecticut solely because she's a bit of an undersized center. Considering the fact that she really is just 6'3", and she doesn't have the ability to guard the 4 spot, you're really not going to be able to play her at the 4 spot at all. However, one thing I can say is that without Wnba this season, I know that one of the big things that Kurt wanted to focus on was shoring up rebounding. Yeah. And Brianna Jones is somebody who's going to clean up the defensive boards. This season, you're probably going to see a lot of Jonquel Jones playing in that 5 spot for them and doing a lot of different things and showing off her talents. And I think Brianna Jones is probably going to, considering the fact that he likely didn't expect her to be on the board here, and she probably fell right into his lap, I'm thinking he's bringing her into camp and just going to tell her to go out there and gobble up as many rebounds as she can get her hands on. And she has the potential to do that. The speed of the game is probably going to be a little bit of an adjustment for her just because she is a player who has had her body change a little bit. But with that being said, she's a kid who works hard. She has a very, very high IQ. Mm-hmm. She finishes well around the basket and she catches everything. And when you talk about having those tools as a post player, you have the potential to be successful. And Kurt Miller is probably one of the best coaches in the WNBA to be playing for when you're talking about potential.
So again, Angel, once more for Connecticut. Again, they're just kind of running through some of the highlight reels for the selection made by Connecticut. Again, it is Brianna Jones going to Connecticut. So as Pat brought up here again about Shanae Ogwumike in very rough injury tenure recently, at least, again, missing last year with the microfractured knee surgery. Does this give the Sun in your mind going forward, again, a team that's missed the postseason the past 4 years?
Well, when I was talking with Coach before, he was saying that just with last season, he was actually very proud of where his team was. He was looking for players that were going to get out and run, and he made a few adjustments in just the trade with Phoenix last year for Courtney Williams, a player that a lot of people believed was going to be that inside player. But Shanae Ogwumike became, a better offensive player in that year towards the end of the season. But I think when you're looking at the roster, for people listening, when you say 5 player, just because we say you're looking at Jonquel Jones and her being the tallest player on the roster at 6'6". Don't let that fool you. She may be in just the 5th player as far as like the height, but she does so many different things. The high, you know, I think it's going to be a lot of 4 out, 1 in, trying to see if they can move things around and pick and roll. But a lot of things that I'm seeing right now is Morgan Tuck, an undersized post player that really is a workhorse but can get out and run. Another player is Rashonda Gray that was traded to the Connecticut Sun from the Atlanta Dream. Another workhorse, another young player. And then also you're looking at Alyssa Thomas, that, you know, she's that forward player that just brings so many dynamic things to the team. So I think it's going to be very interesting, but he wants to get out and run. He has a lot of undersized post players already, so it might be a trade.
So with that, guys, the next selection in for Chicago, their second pick was what it looks like, is it was not by virtue of trade. Looking at the selection real quick, it was Tori Jankowska out of Michigan State going to Chicago. So Anila, so we've seen Chicago now in with 2 picks. So what do you believe may be in the making for this one? Potential, as we've already talked about some of these trade bait, but what do you think though about this move by the Sky?
I'm finding it fascinating that the people that were invited to the draft are being left there while all these other people are getting selected. And I'm just like, okay, well, then what happened? I don't know what's going on. But I do think Tori Jankowska is like an interesting player, but I don't think she's not necessarily, like, I do think she was a first-round pick. I just thought she would go maybe like 11th, 12th. To see her go 9 to Chicago, it's interesting because also the Sky have a lot of really great talented guards. So I'm kind of curious what was the reasoning behind all of this. And like, I'm not sure what to say right now, except that the Sky are probably do another trade bait, maybe, I don't know. And there's another pick that just came in that said that Keala Davis is heading to Dallas, which I actually think will stay. I actually think that's a good pick for them at that pick.
Yes, that is confirmed, folks, as Keala Davis out of South Carolina is being talked to by Holly Roach. She goes 10th to Dallas. That pick, folks, well, another offseason deal made earlier in the offseason. So again, Keala Davis out of South Carolina going to Dallas at number 10 overall in round number 1 of 3 for the WNBA draft. With that, guys, and now puts the defending WNBA champion Los Angeles Sparks on the clock. They originally were, they dealt that pick to Dallas for the Odyssey Sims trade, and that was also by virtue of the Sun trade last season. Angel, looking over Los Angeles again, they did lose Christy Tolliver over the offseason to the free agency wire to Washington, but yet they kept that championship core together. It's been there 8, 9, 10 years and was, vying and striving every year to get to the finals. Finally got there this last season and finally won their first title in quite some time, long kind of getting the monkey off the franchise's back for such a long time. Angel, what do you probably see? I've talked to a lot of my LA friends. They've said probably trade bait more than anything else, or it's going to be a training camp contract and it'll be waived once training camp does then. But Angel, what probably need though to probably get back on top of them come to a close this season?
The last part cut out a little bit, but I'm thinking you're asking what do they need?
Yeah, what do you think they probably need? What do you think?
Well, when you have 2 MVP players on your team, league MVPs, most recent with Nneka Ogwumike, it's hard to say. They're definitely not lacking in the guard position. Obviously, we talked about the 2 players that have been traded from the Dallas Wings in Odyssey Sims as well as Raquana Williams. I was talking to their GM at the Final Four, and she said it is going to be nasty. Those are exact words. She's very excited about what they bring to the floor, the swag, the defense, the youth, and just being able to step up. And they have – it's a phrase, that dog in them. They just really go after it. They have the swag, and I think that's very interesting. Also, look at what they have already. Jantel Lavender, the 6th, and I think I said Elizabeth Williams, but it was very interesting to see how she grew this year. If anything, they need a solid wing player. I know Elena Beard stepped up huge in their finals, obviously hit a big shot for them to, you know, be in the place that they were in Minnesota. But I think it's going to come down to a wing player that can score consistently.
So, Pat, we'll go back to you on this one. So, again, Los Angeles on the clock at 11 to somewhat almost close out round one. Now, again, folks, this was a flip-flop basically for the Wings and Sparks in the draft order at this point. Again, LA was originally in the fourth, the Connecticut trade done last draft day, and then flipping picks with the Wings for the number 11 spot in this draft. But again, Pat, as we already said, you know, when you can keep your core talent from a championship club together, minus one player, but still is pretty good with, you know, the front lines of MVPs and 6th Woman of the Year. Pat, what do you believe may be LA's biggest need? I did see defensive idea. What do you see that LA needs and why?
The biggest hole that LA needs to fill, personally speaking, would probably be another skilled post. A lot of the post players in LA do a lot of the same things. There's a lot of overlap. Ideally, I honestly think that the best thing that could happen for that team is NECA making a full-time transition to the 3 spot. But even if that doesn't happen, that team is built for success. I think Angel talked a little bit about what I'm excited to see, man, because they got some kids that can go in that backcourt, man. Because you talk about individually, Odyssey Sims, Chelsea Gray, Raquana Williams, all 3 of those are kids you literally just throw the ball to them and get out of the way. So that's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. I don't want to play them, so I'm excited to see how that pans out. But I think a post that brings a little bit of a different dynamic is something that could really benefit Los Angeles, or potentially a swing player. The players that probably fit those bills most have probably been taken off the board. Maybe an Alexis Jones would probably be another option. Not an Alexis Jones, an Alexis Prince, I'm sorry, would be an option for them. But the backcourt is pretty much sold up now. So there's really not a lot of holes for Los Angeles. To be completely candid, they could go best talent available here, see what options they find out there, and just see what comes available for them. Now, I do want to take an opportunity. They didn't get a lot of love from Angel and Anila, so I want to take a little bit of time to talk about Tori Jankowska and additionally Kayla Davis, because I'm excited about both of those kids. Those were 2 kids that I had singled out as kids that have the potential to really be impact players, because they're players. I'm going to talk about 2 separate things here. Tori Jankowska is probably the player that changed her game the absolute most in 4 years. When you talk about the way that they came in to the way that they left, Tori Jankowska came in as a spot-up shooter who buckets was going to the free throw line and off screens. And this year, I literally watched her take 2 and 3 defenders off the dribble and hit pull-up threes in people's faces on the regular. So, I mean, that kid has been in the gym. She's worked her butt off. She loves this game. She's truly inspiring to me, because as this journey has come whole for her, she keeps talking about the fact that literally her only dream was to suit up for Michigan State. So everything here, from here on out, is just a plus. And when you talk about a kid like that who doesn't come from much, I don't think you could bet against a kid like that. I come from a similar background, and I wouldn't bet against me, and I'm not going to bet against Tori. So I think that's going to be a really good situation for her. And Kayla Davis, this is a kid I'm going to talk about 2 things about her really quickly, and I'll try to do them quickly. I know I've talked for a few minutes here. But one, she comes from a family that she comes from a family of professionals. She comes from a basketball family. Her dad not only played 13 seasons in the NBA, but he also spent time as the president of the NBA Player Association. So this kid already knows how to be a pro. She knows how to talk to the media. She's not going to cause any trouble in the locker room. She's going to come into your team and bring good things. Not to mention the fact that this is a kid who had offers from every program in the country. She chose to go to Georgia Tech, and I had spent about 5 years watching Georgia Tech prior to that, because my former best friend was in the program at that time, so I was very familiar with the program. She went into that program and literally got to take whatever shot she wanted. Basically, most kids' dreams. She wasn't happy with that. She wanted to compete for a championship. She wanted to play at the highest levels, and she went and did that, and she produced for a team and led them to a national championship. Put that on my team any day of the week.
With that, folks, the Sparks are still on the clock. ESPN just reran the probably the greatest 15 seconds in WNBA history with these game fights and Minnesota running through some more stuff. And according to Twitter, at least, we will wait. But now going to be coming in for Los Angeles as they switch camera angles here as the pick is in fact in, and they'll go to league president Lisa Borders for the selection, or as we do go there finally, they do go there at this point.
It's a great pick. It's a great pick.
It's a great pick, according to Pat. It's going to be Sydney Weiss out of Oregon State going to the LA Sparks at 11 in the first round. Anila, we'll start with you. So obviously we talked about either defensive role player or more depth. Here you get another guard to perhaps fill that. So pretty much you're basically moving Tolliver to Washington, but getting not quite, but almost the same exact player in that guard spot. What do you think about this pick for Los Angeles?
I think it's great. I think they got I don't know if it's a steal, but I actually think it's a really good pick for the number 11. I think Brian Agler has obviously seen Sydney Weiss play. He was there at the Pac-12 tournament, so he knows. And he knows that her coach, Scott Ruick, is a great defensive coach, what he's been able to accomplish there. So I actually think this is a really great pick. I'm actually curious to see if Brian Agler indeed plays her, because as a joke, there's a joke that he doesn't play his rookies enough. So it should be interesting to see if he plays her and whether she can make an impact for the Sparks this season.
So, of course, Angel, you had a front row seat. You were credentialed for Game 5 at Target Center. Again, probably rough, perhaps on my part, to compare a veteran to a kid coming in to the league, perhaps. But pretty much when you have 3-point records across your, stamped on your record book, I mean, it's probably sticks out in my mind, at least. So, Angel, with that in mind, what do you think this move does for Los Angeles, bringing Sydney Weiss in from Oregon State?
Solid move. I think we're across the board that we can all agree. And I just believe, as you said before, I think it's going to take her some time with the speed of the game just to get over those screens. That's something that Tolliver, I mean, she can lay it on you as far as like coming off those screens, the depth that she had from the three. But you're looking at Sydney Weiss, a player that has the most threes in the Pac-12 conference, and what she's been able to do, not just as a guard, but let's look at her length, coming off of screens, being able to handle the ball. I think her speed is going to be something to look at. But when you're adding this to this roster, man, it's going to be a very interesting. I don't think there's a drop off. And a lot of people look at, as great as Tolliver is and will be great, wherever she goes, obviously now with the Mystics. But this is a great pick for the Sparks. And it's going to be interesting how everything plays together. But it's going to be something where she's going to have to step up defensively. And I think, Anila, that's one reason why Coach Brian Agler says, you're not going to play unless you can move your butt on defense.
They're re-showing Sydney Weiss's reaction, it looked like, to her selection, kind of put her somewhat a bit emotional, of course, as it would be with any player being drafted at the stage. With that, guys, the Minnesota Lynx have kept their first-round draft pick for the first time in 3 seasons since 2014. Of course, knocked off the pedestal while interrupting another potential bid at a repeat for Minnesota. Of course, that feat still not accomplished since 2001, 2002 by Los Angeles. So in regards to that, Pat, okay, so they get Planette Pearson as a free agent signing over the offseason. So again, this is at least the second, maybe third time we've seen the Lynx ever so close to repeating as champs. But again, someone else knocks them off the mountaintop. So, Pat, what will Minnesota need to get back on the prowl and get back on the winning ways and get their 4th championship? What do you think?
Well, I talked earlier about coaches and GMs making decisions based on fit and picking some players based on fit. But what I didn't think about was the domino effect with that. And I literally just watched the 2 teams that gave us one of the greatest finals in WNBA history get so much richer. For those who may not be aware, the pick is in. It's Alexis Jones from Baylor. And
all right, so there we go.
That doesn't have a lot of ball handling. For a team that doesn't have a lot of players who can create their own shots off the dribble. Minnesota is a team that prides themselves on their system. They get players that fit and buy into the system, and they have a fantastic play. But if you look at their offense, they're not going. The only player on their team that's legitimately going to give you just buckets is going to be Simone Augustus. You know, they typically are going to look for Lindsay and Maya in transition. They're going to look for Maya off flare screens and try to get her some shots. But Alexis Jones is a kid that has the ability to handle the ball, create her own shot, and create for others. And, you know, there are some coaches, Brian Agler, other coaches, Cheryl Reeve in particular, that don't play a lot of rookies. But I'm going to be completely candid with you. As we continue to transition to the WNBA sustaining, the talent level continues to rise because these kids see that this is something to aspire to. And I think we're starting to reach that point in the draft where even if the draft is considered weak like this year's draft is, you're still going to have kids who can legitimately hoop going into a camp, wanting to take somebody's job and creating something from that. And the WNBA, I've kind of been a little bit of a critic of the WNBA in the manner of it being a league where a lot of players hold on a little bit longer than they should. Mm-hmm. I'm honestly hoping that this new generation of kids can kind of change that, if by nothing else, bringing competition in the camps. And even if this pick doesn't pan out, she doesn't get any minutes this season, whatever the case may be, it's a great pick. They're bringing great talent in the camp, and she's going to make somebody have to work.
Mm-hmm. So again, folks, to end round 1 of 3, again, Alexis Jones out of Baylor to the Lynx. 12, and again, Angel, like we said, when you're good, you're good. And when you're really good, you're really good. Again, this was the first time the Lynx actually used their first-round pick in 3 seasons, of course, coming off their 2014 championship season. So, Angel, in regards to kind of talk about, again, the roster, getting up in age in regard, what does Alexis Jones, in your mind, bring to the forefront for Minnesota?
Youth. I mean, let's be all the way clear. But it's funny. I was talking to Simone Augustus at the finals last year, and I brought that up. I was saying, you know, Coach believed that you guys played well when you have a chip on your shoulder. Sometimes you got to motivate a team that's loaded the way that Minnesota is, different ways, and that's one way where they felt like they still had a lot to prove. Of course, they have Simone Augustus, they have, you know, Janelle McCarville, and they also have Maya Moore and Lindsay Whalen. I mean, that's half of the Olympic team right there. But Simone Augustus told me, you know, we're like wine. We're like fine wine. The older we get, the better we get. And I think when you add a player like Jones to the mix, it's just going to create more opportunities for them to score. Another ball handler that can come off of any screen, create her own shot. And I've seen her break down so many people, a lot like Lindsay Whalen, the strong player. I think Jones is a little bit more savvy when it comes to get into the rim and a bit more elusive that way. But I think it's a great pick. And if I were her, I'd be pretty happy on how things unfolded.
So with that, folks, we're through round 1. And again, our coverage was go all the way till the draft does conclude. And then we will probably reschedule coming up roughly 7:30, 8 o'clock local time. But again, to revisit round 1 real quick for you folks, Kelsey Plum to San Antonio, number 1 overall. Elena Coates, number 2 to Chicago. And then Evelyn Okafor to Dallas. Alicia Gray also going to Dallas, 3 and 4 back-to-back picks for those 2 trades, or those 2 moves made. Nia Coffey to San Antonio at 5. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough at 6 to Washington. Brittany Sykes to Atlanta at 7. Brianna Jones at 8 to Connecticut. Tori Jankowska at 9 to Chicago. Kalia Davis to Dallas at 10. Sydney Weiss to LA at 11. And Alexis Jones just drafted to Minnesota at number 12. Just in case you're curious, real quick, for round 2, we'll get to that right now. Round 2's order goes as follows: Connecticut, New York, Seattle via Washington, Connecticut, Indiana via Phoenix, Washington via Seattle, Atlanta, Indiana, Chicago, Indiana, Dallas via Los Angeles, and Minnesota to get to round 2 of the draft. And with that, folks, round 2 and 3, for those of you watching still on television or on ESPN, flip on over to ESPNU. I believe we'll have rounds in 3 of the evening, as most of the star talent has been drafted this evening. Angel, we asked Pat and Anila earlier in the evening, but of course You were someone, of course, had a front row seat to the 20th season for the WNBA last year. So much pageant on last year, either from all the teams celebrating certain anniversaries, either LA or Phoenix doing 20 years, some teams doing 15 or 10-year celebrations. Angel, in your mind, how special was it for you to kind of be a part of that, of course, with NBA? But again, being able to celebrate, such a very, important milestone, for the WNBA.
I think it was remarkable. The thing that I always have to think about is the fact that where was I when the league started? And I think we all have our stories of, just how excited we were when the league started. And I'm not getting older. So just to see that it's 20 years older and the amount of, support that it's had, and, the veterans like, Cynthia Cooper giving back, Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, they're still involved with the game. And that's what's so exciting, is seeing those players give back. And, and it was good to see how, I think a lot of times we look at the people on the outside that don't respect the game. And why pay attention to that? Like, the 20th season of the WNBA is special for those who want to acknowledge it. That's fine. If you don't, then that's fine. Do your own thing. But when you have, one of my, highlight moments was asking Kobe Bryant about, who his favorite players were and his favorite moments in the league. And just for somebody as great as Kobe to say, I'm a fan of this sport. I'm one of the greatest players in, the world, but basketball is basketball, and the talent that we have. And it's, as you said before, getting better and better. And, the players are coming in with a very hungry attitude. It's been a lot of fun to see these players grow and to really see how coming in as a freshman into college is almost applying it now into, being a pro at this level and the things that you need to do, because it's funny how everyone wants to win a championship, but what is everyone trying to do in order to make that happen? And getting to know the coaches and getting to know Lisa on another level, Lisa Borders, and just the media that's been able to cover. And I know it's with you guys too. It's been a lot of fun.
Angel, I think staying with you, because of course you can kind of share some of of your experience being on the forefront NBA TV for the entire finals and playoffs, ESPN coverage every once in a while during college season. Angel, I guess you talk about Kobe Bryant, but how was it though for you to interview Magic Johnson after his team had just won the championship last year in Minnesota?
Well, I was avoiding getting my hair wet. I'm just kidding. Well, it was fun. I didn't think about it until literally I got back to the hotel, and it was, Kobe Bryant, and then, okay, quickly, we got to go get Magic Johnson. And it's like, wait a minute. We have two unbelievable players, former players, and now mega minds when it comes to business and knowing the game, that are giving us knowledge. And for the first thing I asked, Magic was, you took a chance on this LA Sparks team because the Sparks were in a position where they were going to be going to the Bay. And he said, you know what, I believe in this team. I believe in these players, and they already had a championship culture. We wanted to keep it here in LA, and you see how everything turned out there. So he's very proud of this league. He's very proud, and he's a huge ambassador for the women's league as well as LA in general. I think he owns like every team at this point or has a hand in it. But it was a lot of fun to see him, another player that's revered across the board when you talk about basketball, share his impact on the game, as well as his belief and trust and passion for it as well.
So with that, guys, round 2 is underway, and I'm relegated to Twitter for this right now. Now, Draftcast has not flipped ESPNU yet. They stayed on ESPN2 for the time being. According to the guy, he tweets that the Sun have selected Shayla Cooper with their 13th pick to begin round 2. Again, that was Connecticut starting off round 2. So again, Pat, obviously I'm stuck right now on Twitter. Pat, what does this selection in your mind, though, do for the Sun? Again, as we've talked about, 4 years, no playoffs. And as we also said, though, too, that injury bug has been a pest lately for the Sun. But what do you think about this draft selection?
I absolutely love this pick. Shayla Cooper was a bit of an enigma coming into this draft for me, because I think she needed to be drafted into a situation where the coach understands her and can be patient with her. Mm-hmm. She's a kid that comes from a little bit of a different dynamic and a little bit of a different background. And so there's still some growth that needs to happen there on and off the court. It was a little bit prevalent this year when you look at Ohio State and the talent that they had on that team and the anticipations and the goals that they had, and then to not be able to reach them. I think some of that fell back onto the leadership that they lost, that they weren't able to sort of make up for this year. However, when you take all of that out of play and just consider talent. Shayla Cooper is a kid that she can hoop, she can play basketball, and when you're talking about drafting to the professional level, that's something that needs to happen. And Kurt Miller is also familiar with Shayla Cooper, having spent some time in the Big Ten, and so he's seen her. He knows what she's capable of. So, you know, if she gets into camp and performs well enough, she has an opportunity to stick with that team. And I think she has the tools, as you know, sort of that same Morgan Tuck type mode, where she could play the 4 spot. They can move her to the 3 spot. She can take people off the dribble. Her 3-point shot is something that she has, but she needs to add additional consistency to it. But I think it's a really great pick for Connecticut. And I'll go ahead and let you know that New York has picked Lindsey Allen, 14.
That is correct. Lindsey Allen out of Notre Dame, number 14 to the Liberty, which was their first selection in either round so far. Again, the Liberty were doing some wheeling and dealing over the offseason. Again, they did let their number 10 pick go to the Wings earlier. So, Angels, so we're seeing Lindsey Allen go to the Liberty, again, their first pick of the draft in its entirety so far. In regards to the Liberty, again, a team that's gotten to the playoffs past couple of years but stumbled in the postseason somewhere, to the Liberty in your mind, see if they can improve on last season and even actually the previous 2 seasons for that matter.
Well, you know what? I think she brings a solid and consistent point guard. Obviously, she, you know, broke records at Notre Dame, but I just love her ability to break down a defense, and that's what you want to see as far as a guard. Breaking down a defense, her high IQ level. A lot of players, when you're coming into the lead, is at a different speed. I think she is ready for it. Her ability to even come off of that high screen play. A lot of the offense that Notre Dame plays fits well and transitions well into the league because of everyone moving, everyone being able to, you know, get to the rim and create their own shot. And I think she does that very well. She has a solid 15-footer. She has a great pull-up. And I think that just with her competitive drive and her personality, I think that's everything Bill Wnba wants. Just seeing that, you know, you want your point guard to be a reflection of you on the court. And it's going to be interesting. I think that when you have a player such as Tina Charles that could have easily been the MVP of last year, they just didn't perform the way that most think they should have in the playoff. And I do think that's a lot to do with the new playoff format. But I do think that it's going to be interesting to see how they pull everything together and if she will contribute right away.
Another pick just in, guys. We're in hurry-up offense or being in a full-court press. Seattle at 50. Alexis Peterson to their squad out of Syracuse as well. So, Anila, what do you think in regards to Seattle? Obviously, future's already there with Brianna Stewart going there last year, improved drastically on their past couple seasons, got in the playoff mix this year. Anila, in your mind, what does Seattle get by drafting the selection right there for them?
I think it's a very good pick for Seattle. Everybody knows Sue Bird could retire this year. She could retire next year. I think I like it. I like this pick because I think Alexis Peterson, Jewel Lloyd, and Brianna Stewart are going to form this really dynamic, whatever you want to call it, because I think their offense can be so much fun to watch. I really like this pick. I think Seattle got lucky that they got Alexis Peterson, which she should have been in the first round. So it's a really nice pick. I really like Alexis Peterson really well with Seattle, and I think this is a very good pick for Seattle.
Yeah, sorry, folks. The Twitter stream was going bananas, of course, with it being round 2. Again, that was Alexis Peterson going to the Storm out of Syracuse. The Sun back on the clock here now. Pat, in regards to Connecticut, again, this is going to be their second pick of this round. Again, they already had the first selection of this round. Pat, at this point, what else could Connecticut possibly stockpile up here for this pick in regards to depth or needs? What do you think?
Well, Connecticut is a team that is a bit in limbo, just because they have some question marks. I'm pretty sure they're anticipating Allison Hightower being back in camp this year. And you know, even though she's missed a few WNBA seasons with injury, her overseas play has still been consistent even after she missed some time with the injury. And she was an all-star caliber player in this league prior to that. So they're anticipating her coming back. And also took a year off to complete a mission. And so she's going to be coming back into the fold. So they have a lot of different dynamics to consider here. So I think this pick is probably going to be similar to the Shayla Cooper pick, just best available talent potential, just filling holes. But I wanted to kind of hit on the two picks of point guards. Those two point guard is a position I played, if you guys didn't know. So I'm really excited about these two picks.
We need film.
Yeah, we'll get you some film. These had to be stoked to see what happened. And I didn't care what order they went in or who went where, but these two organizations, the biggest holes that they had was backup point guard for the future. I specifically want to start with New York because I think this is a perfect situation for them. Tanisha Wright is taking the season off. She's told them, hey, I'm going to get my body together this year, give you one last good season competing for a championship next year, and let's see if we can bring the title back to New York, bring a title to New York. With that now, what they're now going to have a full season to do is throw Brittany Boyd into the fire and throw Lindsay Allen into the fire and say, hey, point guards, learn how to play at the WNBA level. And I think it's a beautiful marriage because for all of the shortcomings that Brittany Boyd has, Lindsay Allen is a player that I said before the draft, it didn't matter where she got drafted, what team she got picked for, what number she got picked, she's going to make the team. Mm-hmm. She's an extremely high IQ player. She doesn't make a lot of mistakes. She gets people the ball. She plays great defense, understands what it takes to play at a high level. She's played in Final Fours. I mean, she came into Notre Dame behind the one player who completely changed the trajectory for that program. And she had to play behind the legacy of Skylar Diggins. And what did she do? Not miss a start, not miss a game, and set the ACC record for assists. So, I mean, that's a beautiful marriage for New York. And Anila kind of alluded to it in Seattle. Man, that's a beautiful pick, man. Jewel Lloyd and Alexa Peterson in the same backcourt. There's no point in having a point guard, two guard running the play. Whoever gets the ball, push the ball. You other person get on the other wing and get your feet set. Brianna Stewart is running another wing. Seattle is going to be the most, I said this last year, but I'm also going to say it again. They're going to be the most fun team to watch in the league this season. They've added Callum Swords, which means everybody else is going to bump down to their original spots. Crystal Langhorne's going to play her 4 spot again. Stewie's going to be able to play the 3. That team is going to be a joy to watch. And Alexis Peterson has the potential to add to that. Not to mention the fact that kid is going to get a chance to learn from the best point guard ever.
Real quick, guys, a developing situation or story, I should say, from James Bowman of ShatteredBackboard.com. James tweets, obviously, perhaps a rumor he's heard or a gut feeling, but he says, looks like no trade for Plum or Coffee at this juncture. But, of course, as we know, guys, that can change very, very quickly at this point in time. Still waiting on Connecticut's selection, looks like, at mentioned. For those of you like me that are watching the draft cast from ESPNW.com right now, they ESPNU at this point, still stuck on ESPN2 showing football nonsense at this point right now. So, again, still waiting for Connecticut. Nothing as of yet has been reported for that. But, again, that one report we did want to get from James Bowman, again, of Shattered Backboard, saying at this point, nothing yet in regards to a trade being made for either Plum or Coffee, as mentioned, can change very, very quickly.
Callan, if I may add.
Go right ahead.
Because, I mean, we're looking at a very guard-heavy draft and so many different guards that can be an impact right away. When we were talking about the New York Liberty just now, I was getting goosebumps thinking about who they have already. You're adding Lindsay Allen to already a roster with Brittany Boyd, a player that is just a bull when it comes down to getting to the rim. I think that she has to work on her finishing, but a player that is just very solid when it comes to that point guard position. You have Bria Hartley now on your squad that can also add another dynamic to it. Epiphany Prince and Sugar Rogers, who can also handle the rock. I think that it is going to be very entertaining to see how this roster, how they push the ball, how their offense is going to look. They have some great pieces here already. And when you're looking at also a player that I personally love, and Shavonte Zealous, who has the defensive side as well as that offense that she can apply. Oh my goodness, it is scary. Anytime you say you'll always pick Kayla Davis, that's Shavonte Zealous is that type of player, kindest person off the floor, and just, breathes energy into a locker room. And you can tell the respect that she has on the floor for her team as well.
Absolutely. Apparently, guys, real quick as well from one of the other very good Twitter women's basketball Twitter users, but also in the chat box right now, Boz is asking if we've heard anything in regards to potentially the deal, I guess, that we just talked about with James Bowman, guys, saying perhaps no. Sharon was saying, or reporting at least, coffee to San Antonio for either Dolson or Coates. But again, at this point, nothing has went up in flames yet. So again, as we mentioned, we'll keep an eye on that once do in fact come through. But once more, nothing still set in stone yet in regards to selection for Connecticut. But we'll go to Pat. What do you got for us?
Well, no, I just actually wanted to piggyback off of what Angel was mentioning, because for 4 years I yelled at the screen for Lindsay Allen to shoot the ball. A team where she doesn't have to shoot the ball at all. She has weapons literally every other spot on the roster, and it's not going to affect that team at all for her not to shoot the ball. Bill Laimbeer has to be over the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, guys, again, once more, we're juggling a lot here. Of course, round 2 normally is when everything someone hits the fan. So league Twitter has stopped from this point. Nothing to sue. James Bowman also tweets, so is anyone being picked right now at this point? So again, we're somewhat in standby mode in regards to who will be selected for the Sun. To finish up round 2 real quick, following Connecticut will be Indiana via Phoenix, Washington via Seattle, Atlanta, Indy, Chicago, Indy, Dallas via Los Angeles, and Minnesota to somewhat get us back on track. But again, we will wait for further details about picks made during round 2. And I guess, Anil, I know we probably missed a couple of picks, as again, they came in quick. Now they've somewhat hit a holding pattern. Anil, if there's anything you wanted to add on about these recent 3 selections made, go ahead and do so, please.
I think it's interesting that Leticia Romero hasn't been picked yet. And I think the reason why the league or it hasn't tweeted anything is because there's a trade happening, I believe. And so I think there's a couple of them happening. Okay. So they have to make sure that it can be done. That's what I believe. That's what I think is what's happening. All of the picks, I like Lindsay Allen to New York. I like Alexis Peterson to Seattle, and I think Shayla Cooper to Connecticut is interesting. I don't think I would have had her that high, but I do think the Sun needs some help, so good for them.
By the way, quick clarification. Sorry about that, but Sharon said that. I'm sorry if I got that name wrong out there, but he dropped it in the chat box so as well. So again, perhaps something in regards to potential movement against is why we've somewhat hit a minor brick wall here once more at this point. Again, folks, as a quick reminder, quickly again, we will be here for the entire portion of this draft once it does go final, and we'll be back with you folks to recap everything once everything is done this evening. So again, we're flipping between Twitter, but knock on wood, we'll have a deal made perhaps with Connecticut and somebody, but holding pattern at this point for the draft selection right now for both of these teams. Pat, what do you got?
Leticia Romero, 16 to the Connecticut Sun.
Yeah. All right. And that has been confirmed as well by both James Bowman and Colin Davenport. It is Leticia Romero from Angel's alma mater, Florida State, going to Connecticut. So Angel, as a former Seminole, of course, I'm sure this is a proud day, or at least a proud moment for Florida State women's basketball fans and alumni, I would assume as well. But Angel, in your mind, what is Connecticut getting, though, with Leticia Romero going there from Florida State?
I think they get a player that is just shown that she can be a threat as far as a scoring guard, as well as just her, canny ability to have a very Tisha Penicheiro type swag when it comes to delivering the ball. She's very good in transition and finding her players, and she's also very good coming off of the pick and roll, which is very a tool that you have to have going into the league. I will say, Anila, that the reason she probably went later than most is because of her obligations with her Spanish national team. That's something that she said she was going to do. A lot of coaches and GMs are like, well, how are you going to be here with us, while fulfilling that? So they want a player that's going to be able to go to, their training camp right away and be able to contribute. I think it's a good look, but I do want to say for the Connecticut Sun, it'll be interesting to see if they keep her, just with how Coach was so in high regard of Courtney Williams and what she was able to bring to the roster and her ability to score and just get out and run.
By the way, I want to read a tweet real quick from our good buddy David Siegel of Dishin' and Swishin'. He tweets, Letitia, can you call Alba Torrens and say, please come to Connecticut with like 5 question marks. So, David.
Thanks. That was actually going to be exactly what I was going to say. She added to the end to Alba Torrens.
Alba Torrens, perhaps, maybe being lured over from Hispania, perhaps, as well as as the Fever now go on the clock in another trade made in the offseason. Again, this is the Fever and Mercury trade that, of course, had sent a machination of players across the league, for that matter, in regards to it. A quick update from the WNBA. Again, they are back on Twitter, at least updating us on the current status of the picks again. So Cooper to Connecticut at 13, Allen to New York at 14, Peterson to Seattle at 15, and Romero at 16 to Connecticut. And we are now on the 17th pick as the Fever have selected Erica McCall out of Stanford University, the first pick out of Kern County, California. That is Bakersfield, for those of you wondering, which is pretty much the halfway mark between Southern California, where I live, and Northern California at this point. Angel, we'll start with you on this one for the Fever, at least. Again, this is somewhat of the start of the post Tamika Catchings era for the franchise, of course, for that whole time in Indianapolis, for that matter. Angel, in your mind, what does the Fever get with Erica McCall going there out of Stanford and also making history, at least for Central California basketball?
I think that I just enjoy watching her play. She's one of those blue-collar players where, you don't want to always say just because of the school that she's going to in Stanford that she's a high-Q player. But everything that she does has purpose. She's efficient when it comes down to her footwork and the paint. I was at the Final Four watching her canny ability to just finish over either shoulder. That is a solid post player. She can also come out and hit that baseline shot as well for her team. She's a very confident, very poised type player. She doesn't seem easily rattled. And as you said before, this is the type of player where in that post Tamika Catchings, she's a great kid. She's a great kid coached by one of the greatest in women's basketball. And you have Pokey Chapman that knows how to win. This is her first year now with the Indiana Fever. So what is the culture going to be like now? Not without Stephanie White, without also Tamika Catchings, but how are they going to build with the team that they have now? And I think that's a great pick.
Again, guys, that pick once more was the Fever from the Mercury, again, by virtue of the, I believe, the Candace Dupree trade that, of course, had sent some picks all across the board here. But again, Erica McCall out of Stanford, once more, folks, again, becomes the first player out of Kern County, which is to be drafted in the WNBA for that matter. Pat, what bring to the table for the Fever this season, of course, with her new head coach?
This is a beautiful yet bittersweet moment. Erica's family to me. So this is a big moment. They're getting somebody who's gonna be that's gonna be drafted in this draft. The best person that was drafted in this draft. She's a joy to be around. She's gonna bring energy and enthusiasm to that program. When you talk about what Tamika Catchings brought to that organization, nobody's ever going to replace that. But when you talk about taking the next steps to bring in people who bring that type of attitude and dynamic back to that city, Indiana, because she's gonna be somebody who's gonna be involved in the community. She's gonna get back. She's gonna come to practice every day and play her butt off. Not to mention that extremely high upside there. She comes from a basketball family. Wnba is the epitome of what I call a big guard, and Bert has that same potential to transition out the same way and potentially become like a player. It's going to be a beautiful marriage for Indiana if she can get in and show what she can do, and that's really just bring energy, enthusiasm, and run the floor hard. I was kind of hoping she would fall and be able to be scooped up and come to Phoenix to play with her sister. So it's kind of bittersweet to get picked with the same pick that we traded to Indiana to get Jill and Aileen back. So it's kind of bittersweet, but it's beautiful to see, and it's going to be a great fit for what they have going on in Indiana.
So Anila, again, Erica McCall out of Stanford goes to the Fever, again, by virtue of the Mercury and the draft and the trade made earlier in the offseason. Before we do move on, and hopefully we'll have time to get in here before this next pick does come in. Anila, what does McCall, in your mind, bring to the table for Indy this season?
Well, it's a family affair for her in Indiana. I just saw a tweet by someone who said that she's playing essentially with her sister-in-law.
Yep.
In the Indiana Fever, so that's interesting. I actually like this pick. The Fever are one of the best well-run organizations, and I think Kelly. Excuse me, I'll mispronounce it. Kelly Kriskopov, I think. Sorry, yes. Kelly. So I think what they wanted was some depth at the position, at the forward position, and I really like Erica McCall. I think she works hard, and I think this is a good pick for the Indiana. It's just a great pick for a Fever team that's looking to get past Tamika Catchings and move on to a new chapter.
With that, by the way, guys, the Stanford women's basketball program just tweeted out saying, saying that they say Jeanette Poland and Erica McCall, ? We see what you're doing at Indiana Fever and we like it. And also a tweet also from Excel Sports saying that Erica McCall is the last player physically at Samsung 378 for the draft function this evening. So again, McClinton to the Indiana Fever for the second round selection for the Fever, as the Mystics via Seattle are back on the clock here in round 2. Again, and once more, we somewhat have been reduced, for that matter, to Twitter for the news and information. So thanks to all of our sources out there working behind the scenes to at least keep most of us up to date here. Those of us that are streaming this draft at least live at this point. To round out round 2 real quick, Washington, Atlanta, Indy, Chicago, Indy, Dallas, and then Minnesota
Washington
will end round 2. Pat, you got something for us?
Jenny Sims, Old Dominion, to Washington at 18.
All right, so that one for the Mystics. Again, that was the Mystics and Storm swapping draft picks earlier in the offseason. As some more funny banter between David Siegel and Richard Cohen. Richard had quoted a tweet that David sent about Alba Torres coming to play. You know, you've hit the meat of the second round when picks are being made in hopes of getting a 2009 selection to show up. And David replied back saying, I will never give up on Alba Torrens at this point in time. So just some more good stuff from our sources out there working this evening to keep most of us, I guess, updated here or inclusive here with the program. Again, Jenny Sims that just came across the wire from the Mystics out of Old Dominion going to the Sticks with their selection in round 2 of the draft. That will now put the Dream back on the clock at this matter. So from here till at least the for the next 4 picks are all team-owned picks. There's nothing done here in regards to gears being grinded or what have you. So I guess, Angel, to go back to you with this one, to depth at least for Atlanta. Is it more so need versus want position-wise for draft necessities in the second and third rounds in your mind, or what do you think?
Yeah, because right now, even with the Dream, they have other players as far as the point guard position that they've added in the offseason. as far as training camp. So you're looking at Darcia Morris, who played at UCLA, a player that also was on the roster for the Sparks. And you're looking at Naira Fields. They like some West Coast flavor, obviously, Michael Cooper being there on the West Coast. But I think at this point, it's just who's going to be able to compete. We saw Rachel Holloway from last year that made that roster just because she had a very good training camp. And I think that he is one of those coaches where if you're going to show that you're going to fight through the training camp, then you'll make the roster. And I think that's something that's interesting. I mean, down the line, they've added also Sarah Immobile from North Carolina. And then it will be interesting to see how Markeisha Gatling, fits into the fold. But as I said before, if it's a player that's going to buy into the defensive system first, then they're going to win with the entering.
With that, Pat, let's actually go back real quick and visit the last selection again made by Washington in regards to Jenny Sims going there out of Old Dominion. Pat, what is Washington in your mind?
Well, when you look at where the state of that team is, I mentioned a little bit earlier where they're hoping now to take that leap after adding Deladon to a really solid core group and literally not giving up much of anything for it. In the long run, what they're trying to do is take that next step into the elite. And so I mentioned this a couple times today, but what it really comes down to is really just getting kids who can hoop, who can make a difference, who might be able to show you something in that camp and challenge the kids that you have there. And Jenny Sims is a kid that probably didn't get as much exposure as some other people because she did play in Old Dominion. But this is a kid that was second in the nation in scoring this year. She's another one of those kids that I immediately wrote bucket getter by. She can go get you a bucket whenever you need, and that's a skill that you can't teach. The confidence and the ability to go and get a bucket is something that comes over time, and having done that. And there is something to be credited to experience and the transition to the professional level. But as the season progresses, there comes a point where it just all becomes basketball. And Jenny Sims is a kid that, like I said, is going to be able to come into camp, show some things off the bounce, and make sure that everybody in that camp, if she doesn't take a spot, everybody in that camp is going to earn their job.
With that, guys, we do have a selection made by Atlanta. Jordan Reynolds out of Tennessee is selected by Atlanta in this stage of the draft. Again, that is Jordan Reynolds out of UT going at 19 to ATL. So with that matter, LaChina, I think that perhaps this may be a nice little thing with Megan Simmons on the roster for ATL currently. Tennessee connection may help out in some small capacity for Wnba this season. But what does Jordan bring, though, for ATL this season in your mind?
Well, I think when you already talked about Megan Simmons and just her ability to shoot, and then also another role. But right now, it just comes to battling it out. We're in those lines right now and those picks where you're not guaranteed a spot. You're just picked, and that means they believe that you can add something. But I think with Megan Simmons, what she proved to this squad last year, because she didn't get a lot of playing time from the jump, but we called her LaChina and Bob and I, we call her the human microwave. She has that ability to come off of the bench and just be instant offense. And if that's something that she can add to this program, especially with their leading score, leading everything, to be honest, and Angel McCautry sitting out, they're looking for other players that are going to contribute consistently from the outside.
So with that, guys, the Fever go back on the clock once more. But again, the pick by the Dream, Jordan Reynolds out of Tennessee, going to Hotlanta this summer. Anila, what does Jordan, in your mind, bring to the table for the Dream this season? Again, we already talked about the potential relationship with her and Megan Simmons from their playing days at Tennessee, but what do you think?
I think it's interesting. I actually, in many mock drafts, well, I don't know if anyone's mock draft actually turned out what they thought it would be. A lot of people had her in the third round, one of the last few players to be selected. So to see her go now, I believe 19th, it's interesting. A lot of people had questions on when they saw Tennessee play, and I find it interesting that Atlanta picked Jordan Reynolds. I honestly think it'll be kind of difficult for her to make the final roster. I'm intrigued. I'm not sure what to say because this pick is kind of out there for me. I mean, good luck with the dream for Jordan.
Pat, we also had another pick come in according to the ESPN Draft Tracker, and we'll just confirm it real quick on Twitter. Haven't seen much, but it looks like Wnba Fitzgerald is going to Indiana. That, of course, is the selection, but has not been somewhat confirmed.
Yeah,
It come in for the recent pick. So Pat just say it is official. So again, and then also just now drafted Chantel Osahor out of Washington going to Chicago at 21. So Pat, a lot to chew on here back to back. Give us your thoughts on both the selection by Chicago and Indiana. What do you think?
Indiana, another solid pick. A kid that's going to come into camp and be able to compete. Fitzgerald is a kid who played against UConn for 4 years. So while she may not have had the exposure that some of the kids have, she knows what it's like to play against elite talent. That's a team that she faced twice, sometimes 3 times a year, and playing against that elite level of talent. Each time I saw her, I think she showed enough skill to receive a WNBA invite, and I think that's what this is. But I really want to jump to 21. Chicago took the player that I was actually hoping would fall all the way to Phoenix, considering that she's from Phoenix. But this is a fantastic pick for a Chicago team that's trying to find its identity. We don't really know what to expect of this team right now. And so for them to suddenly add Chantel Osahor to the fold, it's kind of like, well, how do you scout this team? Because quite frankly, I said this about Lindsay Allen. I think Chantel is a kid that has the potential to really shine people. Who knows firsthand what playing through and playing around injuries is like. Nobody knows your body better than you do. And so if she gets a coach who understands that and who trusts that and doesn't try to force her to be someone that she isn't, she could be really successful. And that's what she was for Washington. And this Chicago team, with the pieces that they have, she's a perfect fit because she can pass the ball, she can shoot the ball, stretch the defense, and she's going to clean up the boards and throw outlet passes to Jameer Faulkner, Alec Quigley, and Courtney Vandersloot.
So again, Angel, a lot to dissect here with these last two selections. Again, Wnba Fitzgerald to Indy at 20, Chantel Osahor to Chicago at 21. So again, trying our best to somewhat still stay on track again as the same time, guys, of course, where they just throw out picks like they're dealing playing cards in Vegas. Angel, what do you think as we just saw the 22nd pick come in, but at least for these first two picks that were just made before this one, what is both Indy and Chicago getting in these two players that they did select?
I think they're different in both avenues. I'll start with Osahor, but just you said it, just being able to stay healthy. And I know that even Mike Neighbors had to adjust a few of the things that she had to do as far as practice. She went through injuries back to back to back, in her freshman year, getting hit by the car and then coming back and then, fluid in the tumor in the knee. There's so many different things that had to be done in order for her to be able to compete in college, that the coaches vouched for her and kind of limited her time in practice. Now, college is not the WNBA. And when you're talking about back-to-back games, a lot of travel, they may not be chartered flights. So you're looking at your body really wearing down, and then also her ability to keep off weight. This is in the league. It's very important that players and even the fans understand that it is up to you to be a professional. You don't have a trainer telling you what to do, or telling you have to do a certain workout before the season comes. I think as a player coming in straight from college, you know what to do, but it will be interesting to see how she grows. She's a great passer. A great rebounder. Obviously, one of the most unconventional shots, but it goes down. So I do like it. And also with Indy, it's just a great pick for them. They can pick so many different people on their roster, and it's just going to be a dogfight to who's going to be on that final roster.
All right, guys, round 2 is officially over. There were more picks made after we had just discussed these picks. So to just came in, along with the ones that we have been talking about real quick. So again, Wnba Fitzgerald at 20 to Indiana. Chantel Osahor at 21 to Chicago, just in the last 3 picks for the round. At 22, Ronnie Williams to Indy by virtue of New York and Atlanta. Brianna Lewis out of K-State to Dallas from Los Angeles, and just selected Lisa Burkana, I should say, to Minnesota at 24. And that ends round number 2 of the 2017 WNBA draft. We have one more round to go, guys, and mercifully, no machinations or trades yet still, but at least as of right now, the third round order will go as follows: San Antonio, Dallas, Washington, Connecticut, Phoenix, Seattle, Atlanta, Indiana, Chicago, New Orleans, Los Angeles, or not New Orleans, New York, Los Angeles, and Minnesota. All the teams have a pick. Nothing as of yet this point right now, as we are going to be moving into round 3 right now, as the Stars have apparently made a selection to start round number 3. And again, as we said, somewhat playing hurry up offense here to somewhat catch up with the selection right now, as some reason the Wings did not make a selection in the 3rd round, and it actually is going to be Sonia Chong out of UConn does go to in the 3rd round to Dallas. That just came across the wire, at least in regards on the draft board. So that one goes through. Shaquilla Nunn at 25 to San Antonio, and Marin Craker to Washington at 27 overall. So I really don't know where to start, guys, because now it's just like they're coming out of the blue right now in regards to made by Connecticut, Jessica January at 28 to Connecticut. So this is more of like, let's just get this thing over with right now at this point in time. So the Stars, the Wings, the Mystics, and Sun have all made selections at this point. Still got a few teams left to go in regards to the selection here, as Alexis Prince just announced 29th to Phoenix. Pat, we'll get your take on this as you being the resident Merc fan in the Hangout. What do you think Alexis Prince does bring to PHX for the season?
If you guys saw the fist pump that I did just a few minutes ago and you didn't know what it was from, it was because that was me seeing a Phoenix select Alexis Prince. This kid, prior to injury, was a first-round WNBA caliber talent. She's had a little bit of a slow progression back. She struggled a little bit with getting back to where she was 100%. But as I watched this kid the last 2 years, every time I expected her to fail, she rose to the occasion. So for Phoenix to have one pick in this draft and it turned out to be her, I don't think they can complain about she's a big guard, a legitimately big guard, so that means they can play. She's a legit 6'2", at the 2-3 spot, not lose anything. It has the ability to knock down shots and create off the dribble, so she can get ears right now. So I think that's a beautiful pick for this team. I was kind of questioning some of the moves that have been made in the offseason, but as far as the draft goes, it's a beautiful pick.
I want to add to that as well, if I may.
Go ahead, absolutely.
I have a special place in my heart for her, just being able to see her. Obviously, I was at Florida State, and she came to our camps a lot, and I was able to see her grow and what she was able to do. And I like her ability to just be smooth. She isn't a rushed player, and now that is something where, if you're looking at where she's going with Phoenix Mercury, they also had another player, Dupree, that is no longer with them, that had that same type of style. And I do think what she adds, just having that pro-ready frame, and also, she's accurate from outside. I think it's going to be interesting to see how she progresses in this league, especially with injuries. But I do think that she has a really good chance to make some noise on this roster.
One more pick was made, folks, and now we've been stuck in a holding pattern as perhaps moves maybe being concentrated here. But the pick that was just made, Lene Montgomery to Seattle at 30. So only 6 more picks left for the 2017 WNBA draft. ATL, Indy, Chicago, New York, LA, and then Minnesota are left on the table for this evening. In regards to that, but again, folks, as a program reminder, we will have a full recap. Let's get a chance to digest everything and see what moves are made, if any are made. We'll come back at, again, roughly 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 Eastern to, again, break down the whole thing and get everyone's take on this. We'll have our red folks this evening with Tanisha Stewart, Crystal Thomas, hopefully joining us, and maybe a few others as well. One pick made by Atlanta. It looks like it is Odera Chidorn going to Atlanta at the 31 spot to the Dream for their selection.
I actually have picks 32 and 33 already also.
All right, and Pat can just fire away. What do you got for us, buddy?
Indiana took Adrian Motley out of Miami at 32. 33 is Chicago Sky taking Michaela Epps, and we're waiting on 34.
So Michaela Epps, guys, falls to the third round again, and that was really one of the big fish in the pond for the draft, and falls all the way to the third round this season, and that is once again a pretty big development. Again, Michaela Epps to the third round, goes all the way in the third round. She does go all the way to Chicago. The Liberty, Sparks, and Lynx are the last three teams on the docket right now, and again, we're awaiting those and see what does occur out of this, and just a lot's going on. But again, to reiterate again, once more in regards to Indy making their selection again, Adriana Motley going there at 32. And again, Michaela Epps from Kentucky at 33 to Chicago. Again, the Liberty, Sparks, and Lynx are the last three teams left on our draft board, at least this evening. And we will go from there. As as I said, folks, once round one's over, it becomes hurry up offense or
fire
or court press. It is what I like to always call it as well at this point in time.
I'm getting nervous. Is that a bad thing?
What was that?
Last year we had about 6 trades thrown at us at once.
right.
And this year, when it looks like there's a bunch of trades coming, nothing has been announced yet.
You know, and Pat, very good talking point is, you know, normally we would see. I think after 3 years being on the network, guys, that I've been used to seeing the outpouring of of picks being made in succession, but I don't recall seeing a draft this late not have some type of explosion, and we've been kind of like sitting on a ticking time bomb waiting for that to happen, but yet it hasn't really come just yet. But again, I'm sure that maybe once they let it breathe, that there may be some selections made or more deals done perhaps. But
I got 3 also, Kellen.
That is what we got. As they did come across, we have Kaya James to the Liberty. It looks like Sachi Grant Allen to the Sparks, and Talia Toape out of Australia to the Lynx to complete the 2017 WNBA draft. Once more, to reiterate those 3 picks for the Liberty, it is Kaya James to the Liberty, Saskia Grant Allen to the Sparks, and Talia Toape out of Australia to the Lynx. And that will conclude the 2017 WNBA draft. With that, guys, we do get out of here for this program. And kind of waiting still. We're still standing by what's going to happen next. But Anila, overall take, though, on the 2017 draft is really nothing really happened, sadly.
Yeah. I was expecting a lot because everyone kept telling me on Twitter, oh, there's going to be some draft drama. There's going to be something's going to go on. Somebody's show somewhere else other than San Antonio. Chicago and Dallas are suddenly interested in her. It was just crazy. And then I don't know. A lot of people have been upset with the way the WNBA has held the draft this year, like the way they've had their format. So, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't the greatest of drafts, but good luck to all the players that were selected, and I wish them all the best towards training camp.
Angel, I know that you're probably going to be moving into a keep it too long here, but we do, of course, sincerely thank you for joining us today, taking the time, the whole 2-hour program to share your thoughts on the draft. But Angel, your overall final thoughts, though, about the draft. And again, well, we're in a dilemma here because we weren't expecting the quickness of the picks, but we're waiting for something bigger. Overall final take, what do you got?
I think that's what makes it fun too. When you say, oh, you know, so-and-so was chosen, it's almost like that stock market type of feel where everyone is saying, I want this person, and you can see the deals done. So, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm disappointed. I am happy that the draft was so good that this year, if you're having a takeaway from it and saying, if I picked you, I want you. And that's something that Ruth Riley said before. These are players that we're bringing to our roster because we feel like they can take us to the next level. I think it's going to be interesting as far as when you get to the second and third round, you know, people coming in. I'm congratulations to the people that, you know, were drafted. This is something that's very exciting. Regardless of what happens now, it's just something that, you know, it's fun to watch dreams come true. And at the end of the day, you know, as media, this is what we're covering, the style of play, you know, the people off the court and just how they can be better for their team. So it's going to be fun, and I'll look forward to seeing how everything pans out in camp.
And Pat, real quick, how about your, at least for this year, obviously format shifts, closer to public, notably just media, players and prospects, family invited this year, somewhat of a different format for the regular draft. But Pat, overall, is in waiting right now.
Not sure what you said there. You broke up a little bit there at the end, but I'm guessing you're asking my thoughts as well.
That's all we need to hear.
Perfect. Overall, I'm pretty excited. This draft for me, there was a lot of uncertainty just in the manner of where people were going, because like I mentioned, there were going to be a lot of niche and a lot of fit picks this year. I'm kind of anxious to see if there is any movement, because I do think that some of these picks are a little bit sketchy. However, I'm not in those war rooms. I'm not in those camps. I'm not sure what they have in mind. What I can say is that based on the picks that have happened tonight, I'm excited about the future and what's to come. Congratulations to the 36 ladies who heard their names called tonight. It's like Angel mentioned, it's definitely a dream come true. And this is where the work begins. For those that didn't hear their names called, there's always at least one kid every year that wasn't drafted that finds their way on the roster. So just put your head to the grindstone and do what you have to do. I'm excited for this season. I think this class, while it may not be top heavy in terms of game changers like say previous drafts, I think there's a lot of kids in this class that could find a job and stick in the WNBA. So I'm excited to see how training camp pans out.
With that, folks, we'll take about roughly an hour and a half break. When we do come back at about 7:30 local time, 10:30 back east, a full recap of the entire 2017 WNBA draft, and we'll wait and see what does occur with any more moves made this year. With that, though, folks, for Anila Khan and for NBA TV and ESPN's Angelique Gray and our buddy Pat Friday, this is Cal McClurg signing off for right now. We'll come back and see you folks here with our normal panel coming up at, again, roughly 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 East. WNBA 365, folks. Until then, take care. Enjoy the remainder of your night. Goodbye.